right, folks. I have 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Welcome to EDA 611 Field Experience class. If you can hear me, and you should also be able to see my computer screen. If you can hear me and see my computer screen, if you could let me know in the chat box, please. Just give me a yes. All right, great. So I'm gonna own the fact I'm not super comfortable with Zoom. Used other platforms before, so just wanted to make sure and and own it up front. I hope to put this recording up tomorrow if I figure it out. Yeah, no problem. But I just wanted to make sure and well, Katie, I would tell you how to hear, but obviously you can't hear me. So let's see. Okay, good, Katie. Glad you can hear now. So, welcome everyone. Welcome back. I think we've been together for a few courses now. The purpose of today's meeting will be to kind of go over the course, all the expectations and all that. I want to preface everyone to not completely stress out over this class. We will work through these things. Remember, this is a class where there won't be a ton of reading and things like that. It's more of a let's take action and do this sort of observation or this experience and then reflect on that experience. Is basically 95% of this class. So we'll work through all this together. There's no book in the course. If you have not already, and I'd say about half of you had not yet when I checked it a couple hours ago. The form for the first day of class, you've probably seen this content before in some other classes, but basically just tell me your goals for being a future school leader. Remind me of what an alternate email besides your Georgetown email is. Even though I'm going to continue to use your Georgetown one, try to check it a couple times a week. If you have a smartphone, uh, try to add that Georgetown email to your phone. If you would, make sure that you are accessing not just Moodle, but specifically our Moodle class site quite regularly. I'd say a few of you have figured out that administration at Georgetown, they periodically, I know at least a minimum weekly, check to see if you are accessing the course. Anything past 7 days, they get a little worried and you are susceptible to being administratively dropped. So I don't want that for you. You don't want that. So let's make sure that you are routinely, every few days, getting into Moodle, checking things out a little bit. So I'm going to go through the, I'm going to, just a second here. All right, I'm going to go through the syllabus first, go through all the different observations that are needed. If you have questions, please feel free to put those in the chat box. And if I need to unmute you so you can talk, then I definitely can do that as well. But I think a lot of the questions will get answered if you're just attentive, listen to me here, watch as I go through Moodle. Most of the things will get answered throughout that. Okay, folks, so most of you by now know my Georgetown email address. I check it quite regularly, ask you to do as well. I would prefer you use Georgetown email, but if you need to give me a call or shoot me a text, please feel free to do so. But again, I would prefer you use the Georgetown one if at all possible here. No problem, Tara. You just now made it. One of the classmates let me know you were trying to get in here, so no big deal. You haven't missed much. We're actually just starting to get into the syllabus. So I'm just going through the quick version of the syllabus here. Live text. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot of details about the extra portion of live text that you need. I believe you guys had to purchase the, what's it called here? I don't even use it enough to even know. The field placement, um, field experience management component of live text. I think you had to purchase that in 605. I know when I've taught 611 before, I was kind of the one who was unfamiliar with it. Everybody else in the class seemed to be fairly familiar with it. So you do, if you have not purchased that already, the field experience management component, please do so. If you have issues, you can definitely reach out to Erin Hoff. I'm not going to go over this tonight, but and I believe she CC'd me on the email to you all. I think it was late last week, maybe early this week, with some details about purchasing all that. But there are some details on this file right here, if you need it. Trying to go through the big stuff, and then I'll jump into the meat and potatoes a little bit, as opposed to some of the things on here. Okay, so I do break down a little grid, so to speak, of what's the topic for that week and the different I'll call it experience or some things that you will be completing that week. But I'm going to go through that in a different format and then in Moodle as well, as opposed to here on the syllabus. But it is listed on the syllabus. All right, so this class basically you have a 5-point assignment where you're going to develop your plan for the course that's worth 5 points. And again, I'll go over this in more detail once we actually look at Moodle. Week 2, you're going to supply me the minutes or a description of the minutes of your committee meeting that you do in week 2. That's worth 5 points. All right, then there's going to be 7 different reflections. 7 reflections, each worth 10 points for 70 points total for all those. And I list all the observations. Again, I'm going to go over those once we get into Moodle a little bit. All right, your 45, there's 45 observation hours in this class, and this is only a 7.5-week class. So you definitely won't want to horse around on these. You can work ahead. I'm going to go over all those in detail. Of there are some mandatory observations, and the rest of the hours will be up to you to complete on your own. But those 45 observation hours, you get 45 points for those. And then the anchor assessment number 8, which is worth 75 points. Again, no book for the course. So I'm going to jump right in to a few of the other items. Let's see, so syllabus, how to log your hours in live text, and the field of placement things. Again, those are pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to be honest, those are items that Erin Hoff has sent to me in the past that I uploaded. I'll try to answer your questions on those, but I'll own the fact that I am not very familiar. Matt's asking, I thought this was a 15-week course like 605. Great question, Matt, because when I got assigned the course, I asked the same thing, and I was told no. It's a 7.5-week course because I've taught it both ways. Obviously, getting 45 hours in a 15-week course would be a lot easier, but no, I was told it was 7.5 weeks. So I did cut down the mandatory fun observation since it was a 7.5-week course. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Matt, but I've been told this is a 7.5-week course. I emailed, I believe it was Joy Bowers Campbell myself, and asked about that one. So just passing along the info. All right. So let's jump in. All right. So week 1, kind of some expectations for week 1 are basically, in a nutshell, I want you to front load. Front load meaning really sit down and make some plans. Make some plans on how you're going to complete how and when you're going to complete some of the mandatory observations. When I say mandatory, there's going to be a list of items of things that you're going to need to complete. Um, After those, they'll still need to be some more hours need to be completed to get you all the way up to the 45 hours. So it's also a busy time of year with state testing, with graduations, proms, different things like that going on, depending on the age group of students that you work with. But those are you're going to need to be very intentional about how you use your time in this one. So front load those. I want you to make a plan. You're going to need to quickly schedule a meeting with a committee. And with this being the end of the school year and being a 7.5 week course, I'll give you a little bit more latitude with your committee than maybe I've been able to in past courses where it was 15 weeks. Um, you're going to sit down with your head principal or the designee, meaning maybe it's an assistant principal that you're working with, like you have in other classes. But you're going to need to do some of this stuff, and obviously you're going to need to do it soon. Uh, so basically, I'm going to go through the list real quick of some things that you need to do this week. Become familiar with the course format. So get familiar with Moodle. I know you're familiar with Moodle, but familiar with when things are due, what assignments are due, things like that. If you haven't already purchased the field experience management component of LiveText, get that. Get familiar with it. Form your committee. Your committee should include the principal mentor. That's your principal or the designee. And classified staff. Obviously, we're encouraging parents and community members. I guess the latitude I'll give you is it definitely, at minimum, needs to be you. It needs to be the head principal or the assistant principal, whatever the designee would be then. And I'll say a couple teachers at minimum. Yes, I would love for a paraeducator, a community member, a parent, or something on there. But at minimum, I talked with David Baird a week or two ago. We decided that at minimum, you, the principal, and two certified people. So a committee of 4 would be at minimum. So form that committee. You need to meet with that committee next week. And to clarify weeks, since this course started on a Wednesday, I'm having the first day of the week Wednesday, the last day of the week Tuesday. So it rolls that way. So today's day 1. The week would end on Tuesday, May 2nd. So the second week end on May 1st, Tuesday, May 1st. The week 2 would start on Wednesday, May 2nd. You need to meet with your committee during that week at the latest. I mean, if you wanted to do it a couple of days sooner, that's perfectly okay. But you need to meet with your committee or set up that form your committee and set up that meeting time and date so they all can plan accordingly. Schedule a meeting with your clinical educator. I'll go through who's assigned to whom here soon. David Baird has said that ideally he would like for you to reach out to your clinical educator and schedule a time for them to come meet with you. He would prefer that you and that clinical educator, and your clinical educator for some of you is going to be David Baird, but be May 15th. That list describing your clinical educators can be found. Yes, it'll be found below here. I'm going to go over it here in just a second. While you're with them, whenever you meet with them, try and schedule a date and time for your final presentation, which is observation number 5. Again, we're going to go over these soon. So I guess I'm trying to say is firm up some of these dates and times because this semester is gonna go pretty quick. All right, so in week 1, you are going to provide me just a 1-page write-up, reflection, whatever you want to call it, of just describing your plan for these. Those who plan to fail, those who fail to plan to fail. If you don't develop a plan on how you're going to do these, you're going to look up and it's going to be week 4, and there's going to be no catching up. So Aaron, the principal you assigned in LiveText not your school. So I would reach out to Aaron, and if it's not Aaron, it's Joan. Is it McDaniel? I would start with Aaron and let her let her know that she should be able to change that for you. So again, so for the assignment that's due by this coming Tuesday, May 1st, is a 1-page write-up, and this basically it's a write-up for yourself. I'm forcing you to come up with a plan on how you're going to complete all these observations, the committee, meeting with your clinical educator. I need you to tell me what your plan is. You're going to get full credit for it, but I have found when I've forced students to form a plan that I have forced you all to front load, and that if you execute that plan, you're biting this off into smaller chunks. It becomes very manageable, because the document that I'm about to bring up here in a moment ago, if you haven't already looked at it, no problem, Jordan. It may appear a little overwhelming. All right, so let's see here. Got somebody else saying something. Can we flexibly work with different schools for observation hours? Yes. Yeah, you have a lot of latitude on that, especially on a 7.5-week one. But let me just jump into the ones that are mandatory. And again, don't stress out. All right, all of these are mandatory. All right, so observation 1. All right, you get a pick from 3 different things. Choose one of the following scenarios. Participate in interviewing applicants for an open position. Help in the development of questions to be asked in interviews. Participate in actual interviews. Participate in reviewing of the applications. If you're in a public school, obviously participate in the consultation with the site-based council. Or if you would rather, you can do 1B, just attend a local school board meeting, and what'd you take away from it? What was discussed? What'd you learn? Or 1C, you can determine attend an SBDM council meeting, and tell me what's discussed. So again, observation number 1, you only have to do either A, B, or C. All right, and let me get through all these, and then I'll kind of explain when they're doing all that. So that's observation number 1. You have to do A, B, or C. Number 2, you need to review your school's teledata. If I remember correctly, there's 1 or 2 of you that may not have teledata. So in replace of that, is there any survey that's completed at the school level, at your school, that helps you gain insight on things about your school? But the TEL survey is something that's pretty easy to understand. It's done, I believe, every other year. So review your school's teledata with your committee, your team, so to speak. Identify the strengths and weaknesses of the data. What improvements can be made that have a positive impact on your school? You're going to use a little bit of that process in your anchor assessment, but that's observation number 2. That it's not technically an observation, but it's an experience of, I want you and your team to sit down and kind of go through the teledata. You very well probably have already done this before, but go through it. What are some strengths? What are some weaknesses? What are some weaknesses that maybe there's some things you can do to help with that? We just completed a parent survey at accreditation and use. Yeah, so Katie, when I was saying that, I was thinking specifically of you knowing that you were in a private school. That was what I was hopeful, that there would be something you could identify. So I believe, and feel free to speak up, I was thinking in my experience, the other people in the course, and I may be missing somebody, that they were all in public schools. I knew Katie was in a private one. So Katie, you, instead of using the teledata, you're going to use that parent survey that you described there for observation number 2. Whoop, didn't mean to click on that. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, number 3. This is the one that usually stresses people out, but then when they reflect on it, I usually get people who, it's kind of a shoo, I'm glad that's over, but that was a good learning experience. So observation number 3, you are going to do a mock media interview related to a school issue and video record the interview. Submit the video recording of the interview to your college observer, clinical educator, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to tell you who those are here in a minute. Also complete a reflection at the end of the interview. Complete the required district training regarding conducting a media interview. So if your district requires before someone interacts with the media, they complete a training, do that. In my experience, a lot of districts don't have that, but there are a few. If you're not aware of one, ask if your principal in your building is not aware of one, don't worry about it. But you need to go through the interview. You're going to pick scenario 1 or scenario 2, and you're going to have someone video record it and act like they are the news reporter interviewing you, and you have to respond as the fake principal in that building. So choose one of the following scenarios. Number 1, here's scenario 1 that you need to have someone fake interview you and record it asking about this. Number 1, yesterday at the end of the school day, one of your students fell asleep on the bus. The bus driver parked their bus at their home, and after completing their bus route and did not check their bus for students like they're supposed to. The student was left on the bus alone for 30 minutes. The child woke up, went into the bus driver's residence unharmed. The parents are extremely upset and have contacted the media. Have someone in your building, your principal, someone record it, act like they're interviewing you on the news, asking about your response to something like this. Again, true that this happens, unfortunate from time to time. A bus driver makes a mistake, but they want answers, and by golly, you might be thinking in your district they're going to ask the superintendent or they're going to ask the transportation director. In my experience, a lot of districts, they don't know those people that well, but by golly, they know you, the principal. How are you going to handle that situation? Number 2, once again, you can do either one of these. During lunch, a large fight took place between two students. The fight takes place for about 15 to 20 seconds without any adult or students intervening to attempt to break up this fight. During the fight, one student pulls a knife out of his pocket to attempt to defend himself. Multiple observing students record the fight on their phones, surprise, surprise, and have shared it on social media. No students were seriously injured, and the knife was never used. It was only used to threaten. The media has shared the video on the news and has asked for you to comment on the video. The community is outraged by the lack of supervision that took place and are wondering how a student would have the opportunity to bring a knife to school. Again, you can use 1 or 2, do a fake interview. Let me jump over to that one real quick. All right. Most of these, I'm going to let you decide what order you do them in, but this observation 3 is required for you to complete. You can complete it early, but you need to submit it under week 5 here. So under week 5, you do observation 3, or at least submit it to week 5. Even if you might do it next week, I don't care, but you need to complete it. When I'm done with going through all these, every single one of these you're going to write a reflection and upload it so I can give you credit for it. But this one specifically, you're going to upload under week 5, and you do need to email the recording to your clinical educator. And they want you to do that, to upload it to YouTube and then send them the link. Right here at the bottom of week 5, provide you some details with, if you're not that familiar with YouTube, to upload that item to YouTube for them to be able to watch it. No, I mean, I would just kind of picture, a news thing. If you watch the news tonight and they do a story on something, they're not doing a 5 to 7 minute story on it. You don't have to like edit it and clip it out of the person asking questions. You have a lot of latitude there, but 2 or 3, I would say 2 to 4 questions that they're going to ask in your rebuttal. For example, example number 2 there. If I'm a news reporter, I'm asking, how does a fight go on in your building for 15 or 20 seconds with no adult supervising? Wasn't there adult supervision? How are you going to respond to something like that? Number 1, how how is it, aren't bus drivers supposed to be um, checking their bus before they get off? If they do this like they're expected, how is it that a student's on there? Or how am I going to trust my students to ride to school the next day when something like this happens? You're going to be asked questions that there's no good answer, but yet you still have to give one to get provide reassurance to them of their safety, how this how this is going to be remedied and fixed so it doesn't happen again. And I think that although this will be difficult, the process of mentally working through this, and I would encourage you, and you're going to, that's fine, sit down with your principal or that designee and talk this out like it was real. If you work at a high school or middle school and this in example number 2 happened, it could happen in elementary school, I won't deny that, but it's more likely in a secondary school. If this happened, talk to your principal, have that dialogue with he or she on how would we respond to this? What would we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? I think the talking through this hypothetical scenario will be extremely valuable for you. And then number 2, ask for their pointers on how do we deal with the media and all that. This is forcing your discussion with that principal. But to answer your question, Steve, no, there is no specific length that needs to occur with that. Let me jump back over here. So that's number 3. Number 4, participate in some sort of school community event, community sort of family night, math, literacy, festival, assist in the planning, communication of the parent, public night, help set up for the event, and be sure to attend the event. I've done this during the fall, I've done this during the spring. Obviously, during springtime and with the school ending, there are graduations, not just high school graduation, but I used to be a middle school teacher. We had an 8th grade graduation. I used to be an elementary principal. We had a kindergarten graduation. So you could help with the planning, all the prep that goes on with those things, and make sure and attend the event to get observation time and be able to reflect on it. Maybe it's I don't know. I can think in our district, some of our schools do a K-Prep rally that the public comes to. Maybe it's I don't know, an end of the year athletic event. Whatever it is your school has, that's something where the public participates that you put on. Graduation is probably going to be the more likely scenario for the timing of this course, but you need to complete one of those. Observation number 5 this is going to be the one that you're probably going to do last, but complete one presentation of your anchor assessment to your current principal, I keep using college observer here, but it should be your clinical educator and other stakeholders. Presentation should be incorporate the use of technology and should be about 30 to 45 minutes. So we're not going to go through the anchor assessment today. I plan in probably 2 weeks or so going to put out a video that goes over the anchor assessment. But basically, once you're in your anchor assessment, it's going to be very similar to the anchor assessment for 606 and 608 that you had. You're going to be able to take those 606 and 608 anchor assessments and use a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of that material for this anchor assessment in this class. But you're going to take all that information and you're going to be required to put together most students do a PowerPoint presentation, but if you want to use some different platform for that, that's fine. But you are going to need to complete a presentation to those people. And that's where I was saying, when you sit down with your clinical educator, go ahead and schedule that time, because most of the time they're going to meet with you twice, usually one here in a couple weeks, and then they're going to try and come back to you that second time when you're completing that presentation. So that was why I wanted you to, when you meet with them, to go ahead and schedule this and have that on your calendar, in your principal's calendar at a time. Observation number 6, conduct a 60-minute peer observation of a teacher in your school where you provide the teacher feedback. If you're in Kentucky, make sure you use Charlotte Danielson's framework. Katie, I can give you some latitude on that too. I don't know. I'll be honest, I have no idea what kind of standards or anything you guys use. Please be sure to script only what you see and hear. So basically, I'm attributing this to be like a peer observation. If your district still participates in those, but do a peer observation with another teacher. Is that face to face? I don't live close to Georgetown. Is what face to face, Gwen? Actually, the presentation, uh, I've been told they're going to come to you, not you go to them. They come to you on that. When I say that, your clinical educator will, and then the rest of the people should be people in your building. Yep, you're welcome. And then lastly, number 7, and this one's a little difficult, so you might need to break this up into pieces. But you need to spend 3 hours job shadowing your current principal or designee. Describe the activities that your principal participated in. What you take away from the experience. In some buildings they make it easy, and the principals, you're like, hey, you know what? This seems to be a good day. I'm gonna get you a half-day sub. Come spend it with me. And others of you, it might need to be you provide a few different planning periods. Or whatever. My hope is not that you have to take like half a personal day or something like that. So if it's split into 30 or 60-minute planning periods or chunks, that's fine. But I do hope that you get a variety of different things during this time. Maybe you're in a PLC. Maybe you spend a little bit of time there, working through a discipline issue with a student, in a parent meeting. Different things like that. The hope is that you get a variety of different things. I hope you see that in these 7 different observations that there's a wide variety of things. Folks, I'm going to tell you, I didn't have the luxury. You might not view it as a luxury now, but I didn't have the luxury of getting to complete a lot of these different observations. And the ultimate goal here is that one day when you are a principal, you have a lot of these different experiences to draw on. You won't be so intimidated or as nervous because you'll have a wide variety of different experiences here. So again, all 7 of these are required. After those 7, whatever time that these take, maybe these 7 take 20 hours. I don't know. The remaining time should you need to accumulate that time to get you to 45 on your own. So everyone must get 45 hours, but if part of those 45 hours, you must complete these 7 observations. So after each observation, let's go back to Moodle and then I'll show you the form. All right, so week 1, all right, after you've had a few days to digest all this, develop a plan for, when am I going to meet with my clinical educator? Who's on my committee? When was my committee and I going to meet? When am I going to complete my presentation with my group and the clinical educator? Schedule all those things. When can I go ahead and start scheduling times to complete these 7 required observations? So I'm forcing you to chew on this a little bit this week and then provide me a 1-page plan. Again, you're going to get full credit. It's only 5 points, but the biggest thing is I want you to all sit down and look at your individual calendars with your principal and start scheduling these in. Hey, listen, this week's off limits because we're state testing or something. Fine, but plan around those other things so that you can start to have a plan in place. That's week 1. Week 2, you do need to have, again, you might have it a little early, but you do need to have your first committee meeting and go through the things on that list there with your committee. And when you're done, just type up who was present, when your meeting was, and describe those things. Tell me the minutes of that meeting during week 2. Does time spent on reflections, research writing go towards hours? Yes. Yes, it does. Good question. All right, then starting in week 3 is when you'll be required to start uploading these. Again, you can start these observations tonight or tomorrow if you really wanted to, and that's fine. But week 3, though, you need to submit 2 of them. All right. I don't care which two of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Observation number, what was the video? Observation number 3 is due week 5, okay? And observation 5, the presentation is going to be one of the last weeks. So besides 3 and 5, you have 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7. Pick any of those two. I don't care which two. Natalie might do 6 and 7, and Dawn might do 1 and 2. It makes me no difference. You just have to make sure you've done them all. And all I do when I view them is I keep a spreadsheet, and all right, week 3, I'm going to put on my spreadsheet, Natalie did numbers 6 and 7. And the next time she turns them in, I keep track of it. Natalie says, when I look ahead, I saw the need to attend a board meeting. I went last night to get a head start. Sat there 4.5 hours. Yes, don't be backdating like last month. But if you've been to a site-based meeting or a board meeting within the last week or two, yeah, you're all right. You're fine. All right, so let me go back to Moodle here. So week 3, you need to turn in 2 of them. Week 4, you need to turn in 2 of them. Again, the order in which you do them are going to be a little different for everybody, except for week 5. Everyone's going to turn in observation 3. Everyone needs to, at the latest of week 5, submit a link to the video that's on YouTube to the clinical educator. Week 6 will be the last 2 observations. Now, this is when I would anticipate most of you submitting observation your reflection for number 5, because it's you're reflecting on the completion of your presentation, and then whichever one you haven't done. So what is the reflection? Under each of the weeks, it has a reflection. I only put 1 on there. I think you're only going to be able to upload 1 attachment when you upload it to Moodle. So what this looks like is like this. All right, so EDA 611, you're going to put your name in the box, whatever observation you did. Give me a 1-page reflection. You're going to need to copy and paste that into 1 document. So for weeks 3, 4, and 6, where you have to turn in 2 of them, make sure they're both on 1 attachment, if that makes sense. Because I don't think it's going to let you upload it twice. So, so I've went over the 7 observations. I went over the reflection. I went over the syllabus. All right, I've thrown a ton at you. I hope I'm wrong, but I imagine a few of you are a little worried, overwhelmed right now. I'm going to tell you I think this is the 3rd time I've taught this. I think it might be the 2nd. I know before that it has always worked out. I'm going to work with you. What questions do you all have? There's no way that I explained everything that well. Jordan says, my biggest fear is timing with testing and such coming up. Yeah, I would agree. I won't deny that. When I saw this was a 7.5 week and you're out May 20th. Ooh, yeah, so you have about a month. Yeah, so let's see, let's look back at these here. Some of these don't have to might not necessarily be completed right when school's in session. Observation 1, there are board meetings, site-based meetings, and interviewing taking place when school's out, in my experience. Community event, I'm sure all of you are going to have a community event at the end of the school year. So some of you will probably be attending these those events anyway, and you're just going to be doing your normal job and get a count of those anyway. So that would be good. The peer observation, yeah, that would be one you probably need to get on pretty quick. And then finding time to do the observation time with your principal for number 7. Okay, I lost internet time. Did you discuss the anchor assessment? No, I have not. When we're out the 18th as well, and we start testing next week. And I'd say you're busy right now. Tim's down the 17th. Can prom count as a community event? I'm working it, and parents can come. Yeah, I mean that might be a stretch, but I would say you'd be all right to do that. Yeah, I think you'd be fine. Let's see here. Yes, Jordan, that'd be fine. Trying to think of what else. So yeah, you're gonna need to be intentional about these. I think it's very important that if you can get some FaceTime with your principal, this week or at the latest very early next week, and sit down and go through some of these. I mean, it's going to be difficult, and I don't disagree that not being a 15-week course doesn't help, but that's out of our control. It's out of my control as well. So do the best you can. I think I'm hopeful that we've been through a few courses together now that you all trust the fact that I'm going to work with you. Do I want these turned in on time? Yes, of course. If you're a couple of days late, am I going to work with you? Yes, of course. I think the biggest thing though is get these hours done, get these done. If you wait 2 weeks to take any action on this stuff, then yeah, you're gonna have difficulty. Can you clarify what needs to be discussed in the first meeting with our committee? Yeah. And I probably need to just go ahead and go over the anchor assessment because that's going to be front loading with your committee. Some stuff anyway. Okay, so let me move this chat box over here. I don't know if you guys can see it on your screen, but I got a chat box right in the middle of the screen. I can't read here. Okay, so in your first committee meeting, obviously I'm going to need in the minutes, the date and time and location of your meeting and who's all going to be on your committee, list them and their roles. So then basically the data that I referred to that you have to for observation number 2 go anyway. So during your committee meeting, you're going to take care of one of the observations that you have to complete, and that's going over your tell data, or the other one for Katie since she's in a private school. Basically go through that data. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are some areas in the data that you can identify that your school can work toward, that you have realistic control over in improving? Identify 1 to 3 areas that the committee identifies to focus on to make school improvements, and then go ahead. You guys set up future meetings. I won't need to know about all of them, but I will need to know about your first one here. You're not going to get it all done in one meeting though, and again, you can count this as observation time, but you need to look at data and make an action plan, because all right, the anchor assessment here. You're going to notice this looks similar to the anchor assessments in 606 and 608. But basically though, all right, you have the title page, you're going to have an introduction, review of the school and community. I don't remember which one it was, but 606 or 608, one of them, you described all the different details about your school. So that should already be done in one of them that you can use again here. All right, number 4 on the anchor assessment, let's do the last week, is data analysis. Collect, summarize, and synthesize pertinent information that informs and addresses an issue or opportunity. Okay, you can go ahead and use a survey of your own if you want, but my answer would be go ahead and describe, for most of you, is going to be your tell data. When was the tell survey given? Who participated in it? Well, There's a part of the TEL that the students participate in. There's some that the staff participates in. There's some the parents participate in. So basically, you're going to describe the TEL data and what you learned. I don't need to know all details because that TEL data is quite lengthy. But describe that. Katie's yours is going to be a little bit different, obviously, than TEL. But describe what the data says, when it was given, who participated in it, and all that. Number 5 then is going to be the key findings. What are, I'm not going to read all those bullets, but I'm basically looking at what are the highlights? What are the really good things you saw? What are the bad things you saw? That were, outliers that need to be addressed, both good and bad. Essential questions, it's always a difficult one. I know you guys have asked that on other ones though, but, what are the questions that you ask yourself? I'm thinking from the hip here, but what are some of the based on the findings, what are some of the areas that we can make positive change in our school? Something like that, something along those lines. Number 7, collaboration. So talk about your team. I would say this is probably one of the biggest things that we need to see in this anchor assessment is the collaboration part of it. So you do need to describe, who's on your team, when did you all meet, and it should be more than just that one time. When did you meet? What did you do during those meetings? What did you look at? What did you discuss? Share any relevant information. And then based on the committee's findings, after looking at all those data, what's your recommendation to address whatever your identified issue is? So what do you hope to achieve? Number 9, you develop some specific steps to reach that desired outcome. And then a conclusion, reflection. You might not have any references. Obviously, your data that you used might be the only one. And then 13, just doesn't have to be, but if there are any relevant artifacts, do that. So again, model this after the anchor assessment that we did together for 606 and 608. You're going to notice it's formatted quite similarly. Each of those sections should be the headings that you use. If you describe those pertinent details in there, you'll do fine on the anchor assessment. But I think Natalie asked, so what am I going to do in that first committee meeting? 1, it's forcing you to go ahead and get your committee formed. But 2, look at the data and to start, what are some good things? What are some bad things? And what are some 1 or 2, 3 at the most, but 1 or 2 is definitely appropriate, are some things that, based on the data, that we can do to improve upon an area or 2. Other questions? Again, I know I've thrown a ton at you here. No one's asked us yet, but will we meet again? We can. If a few of you, tell me that, hey, listen, I've been knocking out these observations, but man, it'd really help if we had a meeting to set up to look at these, look at the anchor assessment again to talk that through. I'd be willing to schedule a meeting with the whole class, or maybe it's a one-on-one Zoom meeting or a phone call. We can talk it through. I'm willing to do that, but the feedback I've gotten from others has said that yes, I was overwhelmed, but once I sat down and formed my plan and I stuck with that plan, executed it, everything seemed to work out just fine. Natalie, Mr. Napier does not come to the committee meeting, but I schedule a separate meeting with him. Correct. That's a good question. So the actual committee meeting that you're supposed to at the latest have during week 2, does your clinical educator have to be in attendance to that? No, they do not. But you do need to try and schedule a time for them to come during on or before May the 15th is the hope. If you can find a time that your committee and they come at the same time, that would be nice, but under the circumstances, that's not necessary. And I did forget to, and you guys are probably, while I was talking, pull this up, but there is a list on Moodle of when everything's due. It's listed right on each week, though. I don't know how relevant that document would be, but then also on here are the different who you are. I got so many different tabs open. I'm even having trouble navigating on here, but this document on here kind of tells who you are and who's been placed with you. And again, if I didn't have so many things open, here we go. Yeah, so I've scrolled over so far, I can't tell who are, So Don's is Mr. Napier, Baldwin's Armstrong, Vickers is Baird. So it lists all of these to the right. So all of these either Baird, Napier, or Armstrong. Just those three people are doing those then. The way to reach out to them is listed under week 1, has all their email addresses on there. I would suggest try to reach out to them for me tomorrow. Try and go ahead and get that on your calendar so they can schedule to come see you. Again, I know I've thrown a lot at you. I won't be surprised if a lot of you chew on this for a little bit and the next couple of days you all be shooting me emails with questions. That's perfectly okay. Aaron, when we present to the Cobb Observer, are we creating a PowerPoint or are we giving more of a talk about what we did and discovered? It should be a PowerPoint. I guess better, it should be technology should be used, which for most people obviously is going to be PowerPoint. So you're going to be describing the process that your committee went through of here's our committee. We met as a group and reviewed such and such data. The group felt like these were here are the strengths, here are the weaknesses, and based on these weaknesses, we decided that this would be the best couple areas to focus on. And based on this focus, what we focused on, here's our action plan. Here are the steps we're going to use to improve that. And then ultimately, to the end, I would recommend that, now ultimately, this was nice for the school, but this was also a way for me to train as a future principal. You might talk a little bit about, what you took away from that, your reflection of it. Again, it's, the process of working with others is helpful. Disaggregating some data is helpful. Having to be a presenter in front of a small group of people is something that I'm sure you're going to have to do as a principal. So there's a bunch of different layers to that process that are hopefully helping equip you to refine some skills when you're in charge one day. Good question, Aaron. Other questions? All right, so to conclude, remember week 1, all right, you need to do at minimum do all these things on here. You are submitting me a 1-page plan. That plan is your plan. I mean, I don't necessarily it'll be a bulleted list, but it's basically going to be you telling me, hey, Dustin, you've told me all these things that need to be required for the course, and you forced me to have to sit down with my committee, with my clinical educator, with my principal, and I had to figure out and look at calendars to get all these. Here's my plan to execute to fulfill all the requirements of this course, and in doing so, it more helps you than it helps me. But where there's so many things, I felt like this was the most effective way to help set you up for success. Are you recording this and putting it on Moodle? That's a great question, Katie. I'm not too familiar with Zoom. I'm told that it records. I set it up to record. To answer your question, I am hopeful to. If I'm able to upload the recording, I'm going to. But today's the first time I've ever used the Zoom. So I know you can, and I know it's recording right now. So my hope is yes. My hope is tomorrow at this time that you see somewhere, either in week 1 or under the yellow box here somewhere, probably right here where the yellow box is. I'll probably take that Zoom, our link there, and I'm hopeful to be putting up the recording of this. Yes, but I'll emphasize the word hope because I've not done it before, and I hope I don't mess something up. So, am I teaching 610? No, I'm teaching. Right now, the only ones I've been assigned are this class, and I'm also teaching 606, this 7.5 week course. Right now, I've not been asked to do 610. I'll be honest, I don't even know what 610 is. So Matt, Leslie asked, since there's 45 required observation hours, is the time not just physically spent? How do I say this? You know, can you count the time doing your reflections? Can we count that time? Then yes. The time that you spend with your committee, yes, that can be counted uh, as all those toward your 45 hours that you need to document. Remember, you need to document all those in that field experience management component. And can somebody tell me when I say that? Can you reassure me that yeah, you know what I'm talking about because you did it in 605? Is that right? Now you guys are okay. Good. Some of you are popping in questions there, and you've moved on already, but good. So make sure you're documenting those in there. Natalie, I've never used it either. I couldn't get it on my home computer or iPad or phone. Borrowing my neighbor's phone right now. I didn't have any trouble downloading it, and it's been actually, I found it to be quite user friendly. I think the biggest thing is since it's new to me, I don't trust it yet. I know Dr. Goins uses it a lot and seems to like it, and he's been able to post recordings and stuff like that in his courses. I've seen them. Where I've not done it myself, I've not learned to trust Zoom yet. I'm sure after today, if everything works out right, I'll fully trust it. But until I do that, I don't. We do not required to do a lit review for this time. Correct. That is correct, Quinn. Yes. Someone wasn't aware we could use things like that, so I was just checking. No problem. My principal is taking me on an all-day accreditation site visit at another school, and I'm going to count those hours. We will be there for yes, Katie. That would be those are things there that it's gonna be a learning experience that you're gonna get probably bump elbows with that principal or other principals. Yeah, definitely count stuff like that as well as anybody else if you're doing something similar. Matt, in 605 we only could just use actual hours spent doing meetings and observations. And I'm glad you bring that up, Matt. So I'm saying that you can because there's so many hours that we usually have gotten done in a 15-week class. When you guys took 605, was it a 15-week class or was it 7.5? That's why my answer is yes. Because when I taught this in a 15-week class, that same exact question you asked, the answer was no. So I guess this is my kind of olive branch on trying to find some middle ground here. The requirement for the course didn't change, but the length of the course this time around has. So that's why I'm trying to cut you all a little bit of slack on that one there. So I just ask that you not abuse it, please. Other questions? Well, listen, folks, remember, I am an email away. Hopefully you trust that you feel comfortable enough to reach out to me if you need assistance. I'm going to stay behind if anybody has any other questions. Otherwise, folks, feel free to log off. It's looking forward to working with each of you again. Let me know how I can help, and have a great evening. Thank you. No problem, Matt. I completely understand, sir. No problem, Natalie. Natalie, thank you for being patient with me.